Well, you're still with us here on Mirror Now. I'm Faye D'Souza. You're watching the Urban Debate. Thank you for joining us. That was the Congress President Rahul Gandhi speaking with the press in New Delhi after the results that we saw play out. And what a day it has been. Just to recap for our viewers who don't know what happened, which might be unlikely, my guess is that you already have found out. Rajasthan going clearly to the Congress, as you can see at the bottom of your screen. Telangana going to the TRS. What a win for the TRS there. Mizoram, Congress has lost the Mizoram. Congress has lost Mizoram, and it's gone to the Mizo National Front, or the MNF. And we have Chhattisgarh, where the Congress has now settled at 61 seats, much, much higher than any exit poll had given it, had actually credit for it. 67 seats, the BJP down to 15 seats in Chhattisgarh. That's a massive, massive upset. And of course, the big question that still remains on Madhya Pradesh. The Madhya Pradesh now, as the count tells us, BJP leads in 110, the Congress leads in 112. It is really thin. We don't know which way Madhya Pradesh is going to go, and this is really the one that everybody is watching at this point. It's a big state. Remember, it's an important state, and if the BJP were to win Madhya Pradesh by the end of today, and we understand that counting could take up to 10:30 this evening, at least the BJP wouldn't be going home completely empty-handed, which is what it looks like if it happens to lose Madhya Pradesh. But just to understand very quickly what the delay is and why the counting in Madhya Pradesh is taking so long, my colleague Mandar Fansey is at the BJP headquarters in Bhopal. He's been tracking the counting all day. Mandar, if you could just take us through what the delay is and why, because normally the votes all of the votes should have been counted by now, but they're not being counted, and we do understand there is still, there's still some counting to be done. Give us an indication of how long it's likely to take and why it's taking this long.
For the first time, Faye, in Madhya Pradesh here, because of the aggression which Congress has shown in a way, not really believing in the overall SOPs which have been followed by the electoral machinery, and at the instance of that particular persuasion by the Congress, and therefore the Election Commission in this state for the first time has adopted a standard operating procedure in a way where they are counting the votes each particular stage and each particular round. When it ends, they get the certification from both the parties, and both the parties has to sign that particular certificate, and then those details needs to be sent from that particular constituency to the Bhopal headquarters of the Election Commission, and then upon from Bhopal it goes to Delhi, and again from Delhi it has been perused through and ratified, and then it comes back to Bhopal and it goes back to the particular constituency's counting center. So that shows how tedious that procedure is, and it takes almost at least 30-35 minutes for this particular procedure to follow, and therefore at each round this procedure needs to be completed, and therefore this is the delay around 10:30. We are expecting to get it over at Madhya Pradesh.
And Mandar, if you could just tell me again, how many votes or how many rounds to be counted, or how many seats to be counted still?
As we know right now, there are almost 75 odd seats are still remaining to be counted more, and 3 rounds each. On an average, 3 rounds are remaining. So that is how it will take a little more time from now. Expected time is around 10:30 to 11.
All right, Mandar, many thanks for bringing us that information. That actually explains quite clearly why the counting in Madhya Pradesh is taking so long. And this is interesting. It basically means the Congress party doesn't trust the bureaucracy at all, wants to verify and double verify everything. Like I told you, it's a high stakes game at this point for the state of Madhya Pradesh. But let me bring in my panel. Zafar Islam for the Congress, Radhika Khera for the Zafar Islam for the BJP. I beg your pardon, Radhika Khera for the Congress. Radhika Ramsesan is a consulting editor of Business Standard. She comes in as an expert here. Ranjan Maan, senior journalist, joining us out of Rajasthan. Barkha Dutt, senior journalist. Mr. Enram, senior journalist, Vinay Tiwari, consulting editor for the Times Network. I welcome all of you to this conversation. Thank you for giving us your time. Vinay, very quickly, 75 seats are about, is what Mandar said, 3 rounds each. Now, from where the numbers are on Madhya Pradesh, BJP at 109 on our screen, although different channels have different numbers, and the Congress at 113. Halfway point, 116. How much swinging can we expect from these 75 odd seats?
We can, and if I can take a leaf out of Ravi Shastri's book, this is going down to the wire, pretty much, in as literal terms. But what just Mandar explained is something that I've rarely seen. This is most unprecedented, where because of a political party's pressure, the Election Commission has actually adopted a procedure which is so cumbersome and complicated, where every round certificate is being issued, signed by candidates, sent to Delhi, then being brought back. This is very, very unusual. And remember, I suspect partly it's happening because bureaucracy, the Election Commission draws its machinery from the existing bureaucracy, and Mr. Shivraj Singh Chauhan has been there for 15 years. Somewhere the Congress doesn't trust some of the ROs is my suspicion, and that's
so
why
the Congress doesn't mind waiting until nearly midnight to find out who won the state, but it doesn't want to take any chances at all.
Absolutely. I think they suspect that there could be some game that may happen. Although I personally doubt that will happen because EC is a fairly competent and independent body in India. Despite all allegations, I do have a very strong belief in the way EC works. But I still believe that they have maybe a little less faith in the local bureaucracy, which actually manages the counting stations in many ways.
All right, so let's open the panel up, Ren, to talk about the other states as well, while, Madhya Pradesh continues to seesaw back and forth between the Congress and the BJP, because the margins are so thin. Every time a new EVM is counted, it sort of, it swings that margin. But if we look at the other states, and I want to start with Mr. Ram. Mr. Ram, good evening. If we look at the states right now, the big sort of, glaring takeaway at this point is that the farmers, or the real issues, maybe jobs, maybe the issues with farmers, weighed heavier than the Hindutva agenda that the BJP campaigned with. And would you say that's what hurt the BJP the most?
Yes, I think it's a question of performance, particularly performance on economic issues. It's clear that there's a huge gap between the promise and the performance. People now have begun to feel it. Soon after demonetization, there was a different kind of impact. People were, they thought the big guy had been hit, but in Uttar Pradesh, I'm referring to that. But I think now the effects have proved quite damaging to the lives of ordinary people and their work. There's been a lot of reference to the agrarian crisis or distress, and also the question of unemployment. But on the other point, Faye,
yes,
may I mention that I think the delay reflects the fact that institutions, bureaucracy in particular, but also institutions in general, have come under tremendous pressure during BJP rule. It's not as though it didn't happen in Congress rule. It happened during the emergency. It happened in the early 70s. But this is a new kind of pressure. I think there could be a lot of damage unless people are able to resist it. So in a sense, it's not just some technical thing, but the pressure on institutions, the damage done to institutions, at least to some extent, I think that's what it really expresses.
Well, I do want to first start off by looking at all of the chief ministerial hopefuls that now stand to gain in each of the states, and let me start with Ranjan Mahar here. Let's look at Rajasthan. If you could put that up on the screen. Of course, the Congress not announcing its chief ministerial candidate before the elections, and we still don't have clarity on which way the Congress would go. Remember, there's Ashok Gehlot, who's a seasoned politician, and Sachin Pilot, who's the young person who's been working. He gave up Delhi, sort of moved to Rajasthan about a year ago. He's been working on the ground. Which of the two of them is it going to be? Mr. Rajan, which of the two of them do you think it's going to be at this point? And it's interesting, sources from the Congress tell us that in case is needed, the independents, the breakaway independents who are Ashok Gehlot's men, it would serve Gehlot then to be made chief minister, because then the independents would come back into the fold. In your opinion, which of these two men is likely to be chief minister?
Well, Faye, I think the way the winds are blowing in Rajasthan, it does look like Ashok Gehlot, to be honest. The buzz within the Congress is that, while they have now no real need for independence. They have got about 100 of their own. They have one person who they supported from the Rashtriya Lok Dal, who's essentially a Congress guy and known to be very close to Ashok Gehlot. He has won a seat in Bharatpur district. So in terms of actually forming a government, the Congress doesn't really need anybody anymore, including all the independents, although they've got about 4 or 5 independents who are actually Congress rebels. But the bigger buzz is, who in the 2 prime sort of contenders for the chief ministerial post will help the Congress to sort of stitch together a better chance for getting more seats within the state for the Lok Sabha. And it's in that context that Ashok Gehlot's sort of 2-term experience as a chief minister, his style of functioning, his humility, his accommodative kind of politics might well help them a little more. And therefore, Sachin, who is seen very clearly in Rajasthan and by most sections within the Congress also here, as the future of the party, may just lose out. That's the broad buzz that one has been gathering all through the day from Congress sources here in Rajasthan. And it looks like Ashok Gehlot might well make it, although of course, as you know, it's all up to the Ala Kaman, as they say. They have that high command culture. But logically speaking, it does look like Ashok Gehlot pipping Sachin Pilot.
But it's like Ashok, do you agree, Vinay? Ashok Gehlot?
I do agree, and I think that's completely, Rajan knows that state much better than all of us,
Yes.
but certainly I agree. I do, however, suspect that you may well see a CM, Deputy CM formula being put forward, because it kind of sets the message, and it's like killing 2 birds with 1 stone.
Barka, if I were to ask you your prediction as well, do you agree with Rajanji that it's likely to be Ashok Gehlot as the Chief Minister of Rajasthan?
Well, Faye, I'm almost certain that it will be Ashok Gehlot. I'm saying almost because this has been a day full of surprises and we've often been proven wrong. But as much as my political judgment explains the situation to me, it goes something like this. If this had been a clearer victory for the Congress and not this slender margin where there is going to be a need to bring the rebels back into the fold, then Sachin Pilot had a chance. But Ashok Gehlot has actually played a hand of old-style politics, wily old-style politics. The buzz in the Congress is that these are not rebels in the conventional sense of the word. These are rebels close to Ashok Gehlot, that Mr. Gehlot may have actually knowingly planted them as rebel candidates and is now in a sense being able to extract his dream result, which is that the Congress is winning but just about, which gives him in a sense the context to be and the opportunity to be chief minister. So yes, I agree with Rajan and Vinay. I'm almost certain that it will be Ashok Gehlot, but I do believe that while the victor takes the spoils and a win is a win, and in a cricket match, we never remember how many runs a country won by, you just remember who won. Since Vinay is quoting Ravi Shastri, at least we have clear winners and we don't have to say today cricket won. I mean, I would like to say today democracy won, which would be the equivalent. But I do think the Congress needs to think about what happened in Rajasthan. The infighting between Ashok Gehlot and Sachin Pilot has cost it in terms of number of seats. The fact that Mr. Gehlot was able to plant these rebel candidates does not reflect on a tightly run ship. I think Madhya Pradesh was a much better example of a cohesive Congress campaign than Rajasthan. And ironically, it was Rajasthan that was all set for a majestic Congress victory, and that has not quite happened, Faye.
I see Rajan put his hand up. Rajanji, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd just like to, refer to what Barkha was saying. It's not really as if Ashok Gehlot has raised these rebels. The fact is that the infighting during the ticket distribution was so severe that actually a lot of places, people who deserved to get the tickets actually didn't get them simply because they were seen either as this person's, as being loyalists of this person or that person, and therefore they were ruled out. For instance, let me give you just 1 or 2 specific examples. In a seat in Jaipur district itself, in Shahpura, we had the son of a former deputy chief minister, a woman called Kamla Beniwal, a very widely respected woman leader who was deputy chief minister in Ashok Gehlot's first term as chief minister, and then also became the governor of Gujarat and actually played a very strong sort of role as governor in Gujarat. Her son was denied the ticket. And guess what? He's won. Similarly, many others who actually were good candidates were denied tickets, and they, in turn, happened to be close to Ashok Gehlot. So it's not as if he's pumped up people, he's pushed them to go and fight elections, but it's simply that they were far more deserving. And the fact that this infighting is costing the Congress heavy is clear from one other fact, which is that the leader of opposition from the Congress in the previous Vidhan Sabha, a guy called Mr. Dudi, Rameshwar Dudi, who comes from Bikaner district, he's actually lost despite the fact that the party is coming back to power. The leader of the opposition in the outgoing Vidhan Sabha has actually lost from the Congress. So clearly the infighting in Bikaner district, which actually led to a big buzz. You know, when the Congress declared its first list of tickets in Rajasthan, most people were pretty satisfied. It's later when the tug of war became unseemly, ugly, that the buzz against the Congress began happening. And that's where in the last couple of weeks, the Congress kind of weakened its hand in Rajasthan. So to blame only Ashok Gehlot may not necessarily be true. It's simply that these were much the stronger candidates. And it's reflected by the fact that despite the fact that there were not
I was actually complimenting Ashok Gehlot for being... Rajan, I was actually complimenting... Sorry to interrupt, but I was actually complimenting Ashok Gehlot and not criticizing him, saying that he actually played a very smart and strategic old hand of politics. So it wasn't meant as criticism. I do think that the old guard has revealed in some ways, both in Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, that it still in a way can outfox the younger generation of the Congress.
Well, let me bring in Radhika Khera on that. Radhika Khera for the Congress. This whole business of infighting, if we were to actually accept at this point, did cost the Congress. Now, everyone we've spoken to today, including the panel that's with us right now, was of the opinion that given the anti-incumbency and the sentiment against the Vasundhara Raje government, the Congress should have done far better in Rajasthan. Your margin should have been far greater. But it was the infighting, it was the lack of clarity, and perhaps the fight between Gehlot and Sachin Pilot that costed the Congress that margin. What's your response to that, Radhika Khera?
You know, Faye, as much as everyone would love the fact that there is infighting, and I would like to believe that there is fighting, there is no infighting amongst the Congress people. Nobody is fighting. Everybody has won the election, and the result is because everyone was united. If they were not united and they were fighting, we would have lost and BJP would have won. Yes, there should have been a bigger margin. Obviously, everyone would have loved a bigger margin. There are certain things that we need to introspect and think. After every win or after every loss, every party needs to introspect and see where they've gone wrong and where they've gone right. So I'm sure the leadership will do that. But let me tell you, there is no infighting, and there is going to be no infighting in the future.
Okay, so
these are all just how much, this is just, I would like to say it's gossip.
Let me gossip, okay. Let me ask this question of Radhika ji. Did the Congress win Rajasthan or did the BJP lose Rajasthan? Radhika ji.
A bit of both, I mean, it would have been a far better victory, more stronger victory for the Congress had they contained a rebellion. I don't agree with my namesake from the Congress at all. Obviously she's going to say that everything is hunky-dory, but senior Congress leaders in Jaipur told me that A, the ticket distribution was horribly flawed, and B, we have failed to quell rebellion, which the BJP did quite adeptly. I mean, now for a senior Congress leader to admit that is quite something. So, and of course, the subterranean tensions between Ashok Gehlot and Sachin. All this did cost the Congress precious seats. Now, we were talking about who is likely to be the chief minister. Another factor which goes in favor of Ashok Gehlot is that he belongs to a caste which is seen as pretty harmless in Rajasthan. Sachin Pilot is a Gujar, and there have been traditionally tensions between the Gujars and the Meenas. It's a very complex mosaic, I mean, made up of various caste pieces, Rajasthan. But the community to which Mr. Gehlot belongs, namely the Malis, they are seen as somebody who don't upset the social equation on the ground. And that, in fact, was cited as a reason why he could well be the chief ministerial candidate.
Yes.
Quite apart from his ability to outfox his younger colleagues and his experience and his ability to maneuver in case he has to get numbers from outside. This was also cited as a reason why Ashok Gehlot could make the cut instead of Sachin.
Well, I want to turn my attention back to Madhya Pradesh for a second, because we now have Zafar Islam, who's joined us from the BJP. On the bottom of our screen, 110 to the BJP, 112 to the Congress, and we do understand counting is going to continue at least till 10:30 tonight. Mr. Islam, thank you for joining us, and good evening to you. But I suppose that this is really the work of Mr. Shivraj Singh Chauhan. He was the one who sort of held it together despite the anti-incumbency, despite defending after so many terms. He still managed to give the Congress a neck-and-neck run, and there's a possibility that the BJP may still get this state. So would you credit this to the Chief Minister on the ground and the work that he's done, or is it the national leadership?
No, if you know Madhya Pradesh, and those who have visited Madhya Pradesh would definitely know and concur with me that he is a most adorable person as far as Bharatiya Janata Party is concerned. He is the most popular chief minister and most popular face of Bharatiya Janata Party in Madhya Pradesh. Everybody likes him, everybody adores him. And people generally relate to him because he is one who is seen as somebody is a commoner, and that is something which goes well with a common man on the street. But away from that, let me tell you that in terms of what he has delivered, and repeatedly we have been saying that in 2003, where Congress had left, even Mr. Gandhi had acknowledged even in his press conference that he wants to thank the chief ministers of the Bharatiya Janata Party ruled state for the contribution they have made. So they know that in 2003 what in the state they have left and what progress the state has made under the leadership of Mr. Chauhan. And a lot of things he has done in terms of what the commitment with the Congress has made earlier under Digvijay Singh rule, that they will provide sanitation, they will provide water, drinking water, they will provide electricity, road. Nothing has actually happened during his tenure, and all these promises which had been made by Congress at that point in time was eventually delivered by Mr. Chauhan.
Well, if we are, to compare regimes of Mr. Chauhan and the Digvijay Singh regime that came before it, then we must talk about farmers and unemployment that perhaps hurt you the most.
People acknowledge his contribution.
Fair enough, people acknowledge his contribution, but then in that case, we should be asking why you lost 50 seats in Madhya Pradesh.
No, sir, you also have to understand, and if you just really want to do a back testing of various government who had been there in power for 15 years and whether they could retain after 15 years, you'll only find exception in Gujarat, nowhere else. Even in Delhi, where we are sitting, you had a Congress government for successively for 3 terms, and they did good work.
Vinay,
had done good work.
Vinay, let me bring you in here. Farmers, unemployment, anti-incumbency,
she didn't even get a single seat.
And the Hindutva campaign. Were these the things that hurt the BJP the most? And whether or not Madhya Pradesh goes to the BJP or not, it still has been hurt. It's a wounded soldier.
So I'm actually sticking my neck out to say something radically different. And I know Zafar will completely go up in arms when I say so. Madhya Pradesh had the risk and the danger of suffering a double anti-incumbency. One, of course, of Mr. Shivraj Singh Chauhan, because he's been there for 3 terms.
Yes.
And 2, the likelihood of the central government's policies also acting as anti-incumbency.
Yes.
If you ask me personally, he's right, and I'm picking up from what he's saying. He's right. Shivraj Singh Chauhan was an incredibly popular chief minister for somebody who spent 15 years there. Despite that, the fact that he's lost very narrowly, or he's still in the game. In my book, if the central government's policies anti-incumbency was not there, he would have perhaps made it in the state. That is the first difference of opinion that I have with him. I think it was the petrol price hike, it was the demonetization, GST that impacted Shivraj's performance more. He has performed as a chief minister, but didn't get the reward for it because he's still scraping through barely.
So
That's point one. Point one. Point
yes.
two.
Okay.
I really do believe that Congress slightly outsmarted the BJP on one specific thing. Most national media have not realized that the arrival of Kamal Nath in Madhya Pradesh was not something the BJP was prepared for.
Yes.
They were building up for this to be a royalty versus a commoner battle between Jyotiraditya Scindia and Shivraj Singh Chauhan, as he's rightly saying, has an image of a son of the soil chief minister. The arrival of Kamal Nath slightly scuttled that, because much before Rahul Gandhi, it was Kamal Nath who started a temple run in Madhya Pradesh. He went temple to temple, started showing pictures of his own Hanuman temple in his own. He built a temple in his own constituency. And remember, he's been around since the time when Indira Gandhi was a Prime Minister in India. He's that senior a politician in India. He understands that state better than anybody else.
Well, and here's my question again. When demonetization happened and immediately after that, Vinay, there was, the UP elections, and the BJP turned around and said, hey, look, we won UP, obviously shows that people are not upset about demonetization. Is the panel of the general view that 2 years down, demonetization is starting to hurt them today?
But I certainly believe that the realization has come in that it has not helped them in any way. Even if there is nothing negative that they can find out, they haven't even found out anything positive about it. I think that's the larger point.
Barkha, that, and anyone else from the panel who wants to say something, just gesture and let me know. Barkha, please go ahead.
I just wanted to make the point that we have a new RBI governor, Shaktikant Das, and he is the bureaucrat who actually oversaw demonetization and defended it, right? So I'm just thinking, to me, I'm not questioning the competence of an individual bureaucrat, but the political messaging here, that you have Raghuram Rajan out, you have Urujit Patel out, and then you put in place somebody who actually oversaw, was the key officer for demonetization. And I'm wondering if this message is politically tone deaf. That's the first point. The second point is, two interesting things have happened with Hindutva versus Hindu light. Hard Hindutva has failed, right? I believe it has failed or gone so far and no further. And one BJP supporter actually said, using a Hindi muhavra to me, said, "Bhuke pet bhajan na hot Gopala." In other words, an empty stomach is not going to be that interested in religion. You first have to feed the stomach and, keep food on the table, right? So I think that Yogi, if you look at Yogi Adityanath, who had more rallies across these three heartland states than either Narendra Modi or Amit Shah, and the fact that he was not really able to make a difference to the fortunes of the BJP, 23 rallies in Chhattisgarh, and look at how the BJP performed in Chhattisgarh. I think this telling you hard Hindutva is not working. At the same time, Vinay referred to Kamal Nath's, soft Hindutva touch to the campaign. That appears to have helped the Congress shed its anti-Hindu image, right? So I think there's an interesting 2 points. Those are the 2 points I wish people would react to. One, demonetization. What do we make of this new RBI governor who oversaw it? And two, hard Hindutva not working, but has the Congress managed to shed its anti-Hindu image?
In fact, some news coming in that Vasundhara Raje has visited the governor and handed in her resignation as Chief Minister of Rajasthan. So Vasundhara Raje, they're no longer Chief Minister of Rajasthan. That's information that's just coming in. But I saw Mr. Ram, gesture that he wanted to come in. I just want to point out also that while Shaktikant Das is a bureaucrat with a lot of experience, he is not an economist. He's actually BA, MA history, and he has some training,
In defense of that, I must say, since RBI governors in post-independence India, we've had several bureaucrats as RBI governors. So that's not unprecedented.
That's not unprecedented. Mr. Ram, do you want to weigh in on that? Has demonetization over the last...
Demonetization, Vinay.
Yeah, that's
demonetization.
Correct. He was the face of it. Yes, I agree.
Let me speak.
Why can I just come in, please?
Just 1 second. Mr. Ram, please. Mr. Ram.
Yeah, somebody started interrupting me when you asked me. That should be avoided, right?
Yes.
I think demonetization has been the single biggest economic debacle that we have seen in living memory, because it so clearly failed in any of the objectives stated, with the possible exception of moving to a digital, to a more digital economy. Even that is in doubt. Certainly, it hasn't helped in combating black corruption through the use of black money. Because all of it returned, and there's been a transfer of advantage in terms of illegitimate money used in elections from the Congress to and certain regional parties to the BJP. It has an enormous advantage by all accounts, all journalistic accounts, in terms of the cash it has against the electoral laws that it's able to deploy during elections. It may not work, but that's an advantage. It's not an even field at all. So I think demonetization has hit people, it has hit jobs, it has hit livelihood. And although it delivered quick results in Uttar Pradesh, it seemed to anyway, today I think the effects are being felt across India, and this is going to deepen further. I think it's the single biggest blunder that any government has made in terms of economic policy or decision making that I can remember.
All right, Zafar Islam wanted to come in. Zafar Islam, go ahead, please.
See, I just want to respond to Burkha. First of all, this, as far as Mr. Das is concerned, his credentials and credibility is unquestionable. I mean, everyone knows how capable he is, and the world knows about his capability. So I think it's a wonderful choice, especially when he knows how the government functions, and the other side of also knows. And as a regulator, he knows the responsibility he has to discharge. I think it's a wonderful selection by the government, and he will discharge his responsibility because he's a very competent officer, and the entire market was actually always wondering why he has not been given another additional responsibility or another job or something in the government, because he's a very competent officer. So now I think since he has been given this responsibility, everyone will be happy, because an officer like him should have been given the responsibility. Away from that, the second thing which he was talking about, Hindutva and soft Hindutva, I mean, in terms of the mandate which has been delivered by the people of Madhya Pradesh, it has nothing to do with Hindutva and has nothing to do with anything else what she was contemplating. What is more important to realize, it is after 15 years, a fatigue or the anti-incumbency to some extent sets in. Even if you are confident about the delivery and confident that the state government will deliver, even if they are given another term, but there is an element of fatigue and people do look for change. And that is the only thing which has kicked in here, that people wanted change. And to some extent in Madhya Pradesh, because of Mr. Chauhan, who is really very, very popular among the people, that's why the number of people looking for change is more in Chhattisgarh and less in
No, but tell me something, Mr. Zafar Islam, allow me to interrupt you, forgive me please. When you say that the only factor here that played out was that people had fatigue with the government and they wanted change. So aren't you from a party that came in saying Congress Mukt Bharat, that we will remove the Congress from this country completely? How does that play out if you believe that every couple of terms people are just going to vote on the other way simply from fatigue and no other factor?
No, see, when you use the word, when we often said Congress Mukt Bharat, it does not mean that the Congress party has to go somewhere else. It is the ideology of the Congress party, the level of corruption they were deeply into it, the thought process of the Congress party, all these things were leading into, and the way they have run the country. I mean, that is the kind of setup they had, that we wanted to get rid. The people of India wants to get rid of that, and we definitely pushed for that. Today, definitely, even Congress, wherever they will have to be a transparent government. They will always be worrying that no corruption should take place. I mean, that is something
so that's interesting. When Zafar Islam taking credit for the fact of the BJP made Congress better, is effectively what he's saying.
Well, I mean, if I can only say that, today when Rahul Gandhi was addressing a press conference, and by the way, I must say, this is one of the most mature press conferences that I've seen him do. I mean, you can clearly see he's way more confident than he was before. It just struck the right notes. He, in fact, said so himself. I mean, jokingly, he said so jokingly, but he says that the BJP's constant attack, and remember, Rahul Gandhi perhaps is one of the most ridiculed and joked about party leader that in a long, long time. I don't think there's any party leader who's been ridiculed and joked as much as Rahul has been. And for that person, obviously, to now come out and acknowledge and say that, look, Mr. Modi's constant attack and the party Vishi's constant attack has actually helped him in many ways, is perhaps what is in another way looking at the same.
Yes. In fact, Vasundhara Raje is addressing the press in Jaipur. Could we just cut across to that, please?
बैठेंगे, उनकी बातों को उठाने का काम करेंगे, साथ में जो भी सकारात्मक काम है जनहित के लिए उनको भी उठाने का काम करेंगे। मैं सब प्रदेशवासियों का आभार जताना चाहती हूं जिन्होंने परिवार अपने आप को समझकर हम सबका साथ दिया, और मैं भारतीय जनता पार्टी के सभी कार्यकर्ता, सभी पदाधिकारियों को धन्यवाद देना चाहती हूं, क्योंकि उन्होंने अथक परिश्रम करके, मेहनत करके पूरी तरह से इस चुनाव में भाग लिया। इसके साथ साथ मैं आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी, आदरणीय राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष जी और हमारे केंद्रीय नेतृत्व, साथ में हमारे प्रदेश अध्यक्ष और हमारे सब कार्यकर्ताओं को मैं धन्यवाद देना चाहती हूं, जिन्होंने हम सबका मार्गदर्शन भी किया और हमारा साथ भी दिया। और मैं आप लोगों सबको धन्यवाद देना चाहती हूं कि आप लोगों ने भी पूरी तरह से इन चुनावों के अंदर, अपने रिपोर्टिंग के अंदर हम लोग सबका साथ दिया।
Well, that's Vasundhara Raje talking about basically how she does thank the Prime Minister and the leaders of the BJP for guiding her campaign and her government. And she talks about how she will continue to work for the greater good of the people of the state in the opposition. I saw Radhika Khera's hand go up, and we must also talk about Chhattisgarh. There was an interesting point that was that must be raised at this point of the Congress. Radhika Khera, as the Congress forms a government in Chhattisgarh, Rahul Gandhi in his press conference noted that the work of the loan waiver will begin immediately. It was part of your campaign manifesto that a full loan waiver will be offered to the farmers of Chhattisgarh within 10 days of the Congress taking office, which will now happen. Where is the money going to come from? Do you know if the state government's coffers can afford that loan waiver? Has that budgeting already been done internally within the Congress before you made that promise?
See, we had promised loan waiver, whether it was in Karnataka, whether it was in Punjab, and we lived up to it. And in the same way, we're going to live up to it.
No, actually, in Karnataka, the loan waiver has not been.
And I'm sure in Madhya Pradesh also, because with the time and.
No, in Karnataka, the loan waiver has not been actioned.
As the Congress president said in his press conference today.
And that's not the answer to my question. My question is, you promised a loan waiver.
It is
Do you know where the money is going to come from?
No.
In Karnataka, there's no money, by the way.
We have waived off loans, and we will continue to do so. We are working on it in Karnataka. We have waived off some loans. We will continue doing it. And like the Congress president said, only waiving off the loans is not the solution. We have to find solutions for the farmers also. We will be doing that on the side as well. It's not just waiving off the loans. It is for getting life of farmers better, getting them better MSP, helping them out, live and with
so
their
let me
work
soften
as
the
well.
question.
But I would
Radhika
like
Khera,
to point
do you
out
know
to
how
all
much
things
the
that
loan
Zafar
waiver is
Islami
going to
was saying
cost?
here. Please give me a minute. I've been sitting and listening I've been listening to everyone. Please give me my chance to speak. Everybody's been talking.
We're all listening. How much is the loan waiver going to cost?
See, when you were talking, whether let's just wait and watch. It's a promise. The Congress promises and delivers. We are not like the BJP that we will give a jumla that the BJP gave 4.5 years back and still people are waiting. We do not do one-way talk. We are not the BJP. We are not Narendra Modi ji that it is only about his man ki baat. We listen to what the people want. We solve their problems, and that is why we have been in power for all those years. They have come to power now. That is not
okay, don't rant. Don't rant. I'm just pointing out the fact that the Congress has made a promise with no idea of how you plan to keep that promise, and where that money is going to come from, or how much it's going to cost even.
Don't worry about that, Faye. We have been running successful governments for all these years.
You've been winning elections for many decades based on loan waiver. So our time machine works. We've gone back 10 years, Vinay.
Yeah, I will destroy the state economy.
Can I say
Yes,
something?
please,
I get
Vinay.
a little amused on how quickly parties turn from being very mature to being condescending the minute they come to power. I mean, the minute the results are declared and it goes in the favor, parties start using words like, don't worry about this, don't worry about that. Look, we ask the questions of every party, so we to Congress if it comes to power. That's our job. And I don't think spokespersons so quickly should start changing their tone on it. The point is, unfortunately, the reality is, Indian agriculture fixing.
I'm sorry, my tone was absolutely fine. I said that we will live up to the promises.
No, ma'am, it's our job to worry.
Calm down, Radhika Khera. It's our job to ask those questions, and you didn't have answers to my questions.
do you know
So
how
I
much
don't
loan to
understand
be
why
waived?
you're getting
There
upset.
was nothing wrong with my tone. I have not said anything wrong.
All right.
Sure, fair enough. My point is, unfortunately, in the Indian agriculture system,
But do you know how much loan to be waived?
all political
Do you know the
parties,
figure?
all political
All right.
Do you know
parties.
the budget of
Mr.
Madhya
Islam,
Pradesh?
Mr. Islam, please calm down.
Ji, please tell us
All
about
right,
the
okay,
4.5 years
PCR,
of
I would like to
promises
listen
that
to
you
Vinay
have made
Tiwari.
to the
Please, can we
nation.
arrange that?
Please, I
Yes.
know you are very agitated and angry.
No,
that
I'm
the
asking
people
you.
have not voted
You are.
this
You
doesn't
said.
work. Yeah, Vinay,
I'm
please.
sorry to say this, but in the Indian political spectrum, across parties, irrespective of states, we do not seem to have found a solution to the farming agriculture problem beyond giving doles and giving farm loan waivers. This is one trick that's been used way too often by every single state government, whether it's free power, whether it is loan waiver, whether it is basically the dole culture is the
Yes.
only solution that everyone has to solve the farmers' problem. Arguably, I suspect Indian political establishment has lost touch in understanding how the farming crisis in India has undergone a structural change in the last 10 years. The problems of farmers today are different from what they were in 2004 and 2010. They need to change as per how the farmer is now reacting. From a shortage of power and diesel that was
Yes,
there in the early
yes.
2000s, you now have a problem of production not getting sold in the market because of a very poor mechanism where farmers get their due. And that is not something which any party is actually addressing effectively, irrespective of political backing.
And you know, this is true that there's no inclusion of the number, and there's no inclusion of where that money is going to come from, which is a really dangerous thing. This is how the farmers in our country have been kept poor, by offering these farm loan waivers during every election and then not solving any of their problems and not thinking of them until the next election comes up. Mr. Ram, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I think you should look on the issue of the agrarian crisis. They have to go back to the report of the National Commission on Farmers, the MS Swaminathan Commission report, which goes quite deeply into the question, but no government, either at the center or the states, has taken it seriously. It needs some updating, perhaps, but you've got to go back to that report and see where you are and what you can do. Of course, resource mobilization will be an issue, but there must be a serious engagement with the issues raised, the challenges posed, and the recommendations made in that excellent report.
Right, a final comment from Barkha Dutt as well. Barkha, when we look at the fact that it's perhaps the farmers who have made these governments accountable today, and it's the same series of mistakes that are being repeated by the Congress party, where the Congress party president less than half an hour ago promised that, of course, we will give you a loan waiver without an explanation of where that money is going to come from.
Well, Faye, I think the politics of loan waiver, as everybody has commented on the panel, are cosmetic. They're like putting a band-aid on a wound, right? It doesn't really get to the source of the problem. Mr. Ram referred to the Swaminathan Commission report. There is a formula for computing the minimum support price. And actually, you saw the BJP making a big announcement saying, you know, we've increased the MSP. But that was not increased to the formula which incorporates, you know, the cost to the farmer. And the fact of the matter is that everybody does this lip service to farmers' issues only in election season, and you have these stockpiles of grains, you know, just rotting away. You had that horrific image of the farmer actually destroying his crop because there was nobody to buy it, nobody to pick it up. So I'm really hoping that one thing that this election does is to bring rural India back into center stage. You know, 2014 when Mr. Modi won, there was so much talk about aspirational India. Aspirational India seems to have left behind the mass of India, and I think the mass of India is asserting its voice in this election, and that is why the politics of Hindutva have not worked, because when you see the agrarian crisis, the rural distress, the lack of jobs, Yogi Adityanath's 74 rallies are only going to go so far and no further.
Absolutely. I see Zafar Islam has his hand up. Zafar Islam, I have a minute left on the show, so very quickly, please make your point.
No, see, agrarian issue, I think we need to really have to analyze it properly, because the agriculture growth is 4%, while the population is only growing by 1%. So there is a huge amount of produce which cannot be consumed locally. That's why it is important to create the market, and that's why and create infrastructure, both in forward integration and backward integration, something which has been never addressed. Our government since 2014 have addressed this. These are the concerns, because unless you address this concern, infrastructure, unless you create backward integration, forward integration, you cannot address this concern. You have to create market, because these produce cannot be sold unless there is a market. Where is the market for them? And that's why ENAM and all these markets have been created by our government. This will take time, because historically it has never been done by the Congress. All this, as rightly pointed out by Barkha, and she was spot on. But this is just a bandage on the wound.
Well,
Because this loan waiver cannot solve the problem.
While I
forever.
accept,
It is
Mr.
a
Islam, I've
temporary
run out of time. While I
solution.
accept the
But
fact
let me ask
that
you,
it was
let me
not
ask you-
done by the Congress in previous governments, we must also realize that it was not done by this government, this current BJP government that's in power in the centre, and that is why farmers are in distress across the country, and that is possibly why in states of Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Rajasthan, states that are heavy farming states where nearly 70% of the population is involved in agriculture, there was a day of reckoning today for the BJP. It was also perhaps in Chhattisgarh and in Madhya Pradesh where the local chief minister was very, very popular. The beating might have come from farmers because of central government policies, and that's something to consider as well. We're going to take a quick break, but we will come back on Mirror Now to take a look at what this means for 2019 and the changes that this might bring. On the other side, don't go anywhere.